Hello, film fans. Welcome to the Film vs. Film podcast. My name is Martin Harries, your host. I'm a filmmaker on occasion, but mainly can't stop yapping about movies. On this podcast, every episode I pick a topic from a film that's coming out at the cinema or on streaming. I pick a favourite film from that topic and battle it out against a guest to decide which film will become the greatest film of all time. If you enjoy this podcast, please leave us a 5-star review and subscribe. Please enjoy part 1. This episode, as Wonka is out in the cinemas, we'll be, of course, talking prequel films. And, of course, I am not alone. Oh no, I have another returning guest. His 4th appearance on the show, Leigh from Lights Camera Rant. How are you, sir?
I'm going good, man. Thank you very much for having me. Actually, I can't believe it was the 4th time, but hell yeah.
Yeah, 2 regular episodes and 2 spoiler specials.
That's right.
It's always great to have you on. So we're relating this episode to Wonka. What do we make of it? The new Paul King film? Thoughts? Have you seen the trailer?
Yeah, I've seen the trailer. I would have to say that I think this is going to be a lot better than Charlie and the Chocolate Factory.
Yeah, the Tim Burton one.
The Tim Burton one. I think that's already past that milestone. It looks very colourful while singing in it, probably just as the first one. But Timothy Chalamet, just in the costume alone, just looks so reminiscent of the first one. Yeah. What do you think of it?
Yeah, I've seen a few of the trailers. I mean, Hugh Grant looks like he's having an amazing time as an Oompa Loompa.
Does that look like a paycheck to you, though? It's like, yeah, sure.
Possibly.
After Dungeons and Dragons, like, sure, I'll be an Oompa Loompa. I have kids to feed.
Yeah, I mean, it looks super charming. Charmness personified for me. Super British. It's obviously directed by Paul King, who did the first 2 Paddington films, and they're like really great family films and really great quality writing in those films as well. So I think people have really high expectations for this film. I mean, Chalamet just looks great as Wonka, and also like they filmed some of the scenes in Lyme Regis by the coast, so it's like about 90 minutes away from me.
Oh, really?
There's a little like cob, we call it, like walkway, I guess, at the port of Lyme Regis, and they do a little sequence there, and I've walked along that bit loads of times. So
you're like, I've been there.
Yeah, I have indeed. Very snowy it looks in the trailer. I don't think it's ever snowed in Lyme Regis. So all that snow is all fake, obviously. But also I must say with like Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, the Gene Wilder film, that was a film that really freaked the shit out of me as a kid. You know, super scary.
The tunnel scene, when you look at it, like half of it you think he's just killing the kids. Until the end, you're like, oh, you're all alive.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's always a tunnel scene.
Yeah, for me, it was just like the kid going up, getting sucked up by the chocolate thing, falling into the chocolate
Gouda
river. That was scary. And like, I was always like, if you eat a blueberry sweet, are you going to turn into a blueberry? I don't want that.
And a bunch of little men are going to roll me away.
So let's go with my choice then. First for prequels. So for me, like it was this one or Star Wars Rogue One. I nearly picked Star Wars Rogue One. That's a great prequel. I mean, the Star Wars actual prequel trilogy, I'm not the biggest fan of. I mean, the third one's okay, but the first 2, episode 1 and 2, are pretty bad for me.
2's the worst one for me. That's the least one I ever go back to.
Yeah, definitely. But when I saw Prometheus for the first time in cinemas, I was so hyped for this film. You know, Alien is arguably probably one of my favorite franchises ever, especially the first one. Probably my favorite film of all time, frankly.
Which we did too.
Yeah, we did Aliens last time on the regular podcast. So my expectations were really high and I was so excited. and it just fell a little bit flat for me. I was a bit disappointed, and so watching it again for this podcast, I was like, I really wanted to watch it again. Of like, was it actually better than I thought it was the first time? You know, some people have been reassessing it and saying it's a pretty good film. There's some really great ideas here. It's almost kind of not like an alien film anyway. It's kind of its own thing. I'm not sure I entirely agree with that. But yeah, watching it again, it was kind of still disappointing and frustrated me even more, frankly. So what was your initial reactions to Prometheus?
Well, actually, as I mentioned to you when we were talking, that I've seen bits and pieces of it. I've actually never seen it in full. I think I was one of those skeptics that when when it first came out, a lot of people were like bagging this, saying, you know, it's kind of not what it was first advertised, being a prequel film to Aliens, and there were no technical aliens. So when I watched this for the first time, I didn't realize actually how star-studded the cast was at first. I was like, oh shit, they're on. There's Wong, a slim Wong too.
Yeah, he looks really slim.
But just I thought it was a good setup. I thought it was a good setup movie. I didn't think about all the hate at all, especially the ending as well. I didn't think, I don't know, this set up aliens very well.
Yeah.
And all the little connections, but at the same time, I could see why people were like, you know, it's not this, it's not that. I think it's just, you know, it's a good movie. It's set up so much. Like, you can tell there's meant to be another movie to bridge the gap.
That's always the kind of the problem with prequels when you go into them. You know, you always have a sense and an idea of how these films are going to end. So I feel like Prometheus is an example where we're at like a halfway house kind of thing of like it's trying to be its own thing and set up Alien as well. And it doesn't really do that anyway. There's a lot more story that's left hanging. So there's a lot of like sequel baiting to Prometheus anyway. So it's really interesting. So what happens in Prometheus? Well, going to the IMDb, following clues to the origin of mankind, a team finds a structure on a distant moon, but they soon realize they are not alone. Yeah, so directing then, this one is obviously directed by the great Ridley Scott. So I always feel like in prequels and especially Alien films, in that they don't want to copy what's come before. So when they explore like the temple ship for the first time, like the pacing seems to be a tad quick for me. You have a lot of like great looking shots combined with like the helmet cam POV shots, which I'm not a massive fan of anyway, but there's a nice like strange intriguing sequence where like David sets off this sort of recording of these engineers running down the corridor that looked great and new, but when they get to like the main compartment with this massive head sculpture, I feel like there's not enough atmosphere building with how Ridley Scott is like directing it. I feel like he's just showing us what each character is doing in that scene, and before you know it, a storm is coming and they all have to get the hell out of there.
Of course there is. Of course there's a random storm coming.
And I feel like there's too much of a reliance on like the set design doing all the atmosphere building alone. And I feel like Ridley is like, yeah, that's enough, and focusing on doing something new, which is cool, but I feel like it just could have been better if they just took their time a little bit more. Yeah. I mean, how did you feel about like those initial moments when they enter the temple for the first time?
I like the world building it did all the way. You know, all the very start of the film is beautiful landscape shots all the way, which just made me want to travel
to Iceland.
Not to this planet, for the love of God. But you're right. I did like the holograms. I did like it with all the running, how big this structure is, because of those little orbs that show how big the structure is. But you are right in saying that when they do get in there, it's like, a giant head, and then suddenly, by the way, there's a storm.
Yeah.
You got to get out really quickly. And that's probably leads to one thing is I don't understand why those other two guys couldn't get out in time.
Yeah.
Yeah, like you left
Yeah.
before them. You have the orbs that tell you where the structure is. How did you
Yeah.
not? How did you take longer? But and then when we see all the capsules, we also instantly think of Alien. But
Yeah.
it's very shortened. David takes one of them, and it's just get out of there.
Yeah, I do like the design of what they were going with these vases, and it's got like this black goo in the atmosphere because they've entered the room now because it's been thousands of years
It's activated.
where the atmosphere has changed the temperature. So, I kind of like that stuff. And they are trying something new. You're not having the typical thing, but then they do the typical thing when they make the sequel to this film, An Alien Covenant. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, there are some very stupid elements to this film. Like one being how Fifield and Milburn get lost in the temple tunnels. It's strange.
That had me stumped, and I was like, "What? Wasn't it your orbs?"
Yeah. Because he's the one in charge of the mapping. He's mapping the place with these floaty red scanning balls. Maybe the ship can only see the map, but I think you get the sense that Fifield can read them. And why would they just randomly enter the giant head chamber with lots of creepy black goo around? Sure, let's go in there.
Yeah. This looks safe.
But the way they get killed was pretty cool. The way you see one pale snake pop up, then another one pops up right next to Milburn, that was well done. I liked how it breaks his arm and enters his suit and goes through his mouth. I loved the way the acid melts Fifield's helmet. That was great. The first bit of horror definitely delivers for me, but it was just kind of stupid of how they got in there.
Pretty much. Yeah. It was how they died, really good. How they got stuck, bit iffy.
Yeah.
But I think I can't remember the movie. The thing that wrapped around his arm made me think. I want to say sunburn. I think it's sunburn. It's like that white liquid goo that goes and breaks his arm. I think it's that. I think that's the movie. But it made me think of that. I was like, oh, just imagine something going around your arm and breaking it, and in your suit, and then halfway down your throat.
Oh, what? 127 hours?
Oh, it could be that.
Yeah. He has to cut his own arm off.
Yeah, that's it.
Oh, that
made me think of that straight away. I was like, oh.
Yeah, the sound design in that is just oh my god.
Yeah,
turn it off.
Nah, not today.
Yeah.
But yeah, the black goo, just it's acid to his suit straight away.
Yeah, that was great. I love that.
Everything's just active now.
The second visit to the temple / ship feels a tad frustrating too, because you have Holloway slowly getting sick like the first engineer. Then when they find what was left of Milburn, he looks proper nasty, and Ford notices something in his mouth, and the vagina snake jumps up. But at the same time, Holloway is getting more and more sick, and Shaw and Yannick, Idris Elba's character, is trying to communicate to each other with what's going on with each situation. But for me, each situation is kind of diluting its own impact. Again, there could have been suspense underlined there around Milburn's body, what's in there, and then Holloway gets sicker later on in the scene. It could have worked better that way, and I think they were just going for this chaotic feel, but it didn't quite work for me.
I just thought it was I felt at the very start I felt bad for David, Michael Fassbender's character David, of them all being dicks to him. I'm like, oh, come on, he's there to help you. He could kill all of you if he really wanted to.
Yeah,
but yeah, when he did the black goo, what's the name, the wine to get into his body, I was like, this is
Holloway.
Holloway, I'm like, this is kind of effed up.
Yeah.
What are you trying to achieve? You just made this guy swallow an alien goo.
Yeah, I mean, I like that idea, but I just feel there could have been more attention to that, and yet we're being distracted by what they're looking at with what happened to Milburn and what happened. The snake is in his body, and then it kind of jumps out, and it's just both of those things are happening at the same time, and it just dilutes each other, which is a shame. So that was kind of annoying.
Yeah,
for me. But The final action scenes are really impressive from a spectacle point of view. And this film came out in an era of Hollywood in the early 2010s where giant ships and buildings crashing into each other. That was the thing, massive destruction, Star Trek Into Darkness, Man of Steel. It all kind of came out around that time.
Destroy everything.
And this film is kind of no different. I liked the sacrifice of Idris Elba and his co-pilots crashing into the alien ship.
Yeah,
that was epic.
Straight up of oh, okay. No one's surviving this, are they?
No. Yeah, you definitely get that feeling when that happens. Yeah. No one's getting out alive. Yeah. Well, some of them at least. But then it gets very dumb again, where Vickers and Shaw are trying to run away from the falling ship, but the ship is quite narrow. Just run sideways away from it.
Yeah, I thought that too.
So that was frustrating.
I was like, the ship is only long on the way you're running. Don't run in the shadow. Run out of the shadow.
I feel like everyone in the cinema was shouting that. I'm like, what are you doing?
Yeah. Just run the other way. You'll be fine.
Yeah.
And I do like how one side does kill Meredith, but the other doesn't kill Shaw. Just.
No. Yeah, just. Yeah.
In saying that, obviously not bagging superhero films, but it is nice to watch a film where I haven't noticed the CGI.
Yeah, I mean, the CGI is really good in this, I think, really sharp. I feel like we are kind of going downhill a little bit with certainly the bigger studios of the quality of CGI, especially with Marvel now.
It's evolving backwards.
It's weird. What's going on? It's supposed to be getting better, not worse.
Yeah.
But I feel like this era of the early 2010s, that's kind of peak CGI for me.
Well, even Man of Steel. Man of Steel didn't. Probably 2 scenes where you actually noticed the CGI. Everything else was very crisp.
Yeah, absolutely. But for me, in these last moments, what's even more frustrating is that when Shaw gets to the lifeboat, she sees her alien baby through the window of the medical bay.
Oh, that scene.
And there's some nice horror direction there, but it's very limited before the engineer arrives, and then he just gets caught by the giant baby facehugger immediately. Yes, that's probably a very logical thing for Shaw to do in opening the door straight away, but I feel like there could have been something equally as epic in their fight or cat and mouse stuff. Yes, Shaw is wildly undermatched, but so was Ripley in the first film. So it just feels like the scene was either reshot or heavily cut down, and they just preferred to focus on the massive explosions, which was a real shame for me. I just feel like the balance between the real kind of hardcore horror stuff and the big spectacle just wasn't there in the end.
Not a good balance. And you're right. She walks in, which you get all the nice suspense. She got the axe. And of course, that little thing's not dead. She just looks at it for 2 seconds. And then obviously David tells her to watch out. Also, these engineers, I don't know why, but were awfully ripped too. Yeah. So I got to point that out. That opening scene, I'm like, all right. This guy's awfully chiseled.
Yeah.
For some reason.
I kind of like that idea, though, that these engineers are the peak of human existence kind of thing.
Greek god kind of thing.
They are technically humans in this. They have human DNA in this. So I do like that idea that, we're going for, peak human physique, and they're trying to create new life from their own DNA.
Which didn't work.
No. Wildly did not work. Yeah. Nah, screw all that. We're going to destroy Earth instead and start new.
Yeah.
You guys suck.
No, it's stuff this. The Peter Whalen was a surprise to me.
Yeah, I mean, the makeup design, and I don't know if there's CGI involved in his look, but yeah, that was really great as well for me.
It was Guy Pearce. I thought so.
Yeah. Have you got a favourite shot or scene for you?
Probably a lot of landscape shots were probably my favourite, but probably one of the creepiest things I found was when Holloway was looking in the mirror.
Oh yeah,
and you can see the bug in his eye, and I'm like, oh.
Yeah, that is a very
Yeah.
disgusting moment. I think for me, my favorite shot or scene is definitely like the opening one. We have these incredible big wide shots showing off Iceland mainly. But I liked how
Yeah.
like simple it is, where we see like the big circular shape in the sky, and it's not really recognizable as a spaceship. Then we see like a massive silver skinned dude, the engineer, the first one, that looks human in shape. He drinks like this black goo, and it's quite gnarly where as the black goo is like basically tearing this guy apart, his leg gives way and he falls into the waterfall. And the camera goes right in fast and close to his DNA strand and destroys them. But then moments later, we see like new DNA strands being created. So I love how, like, with no dialogue at all, we get a simple scene already explaining a little bit about what this film is going to be about. So I love that kind of opening scene. Apparently, there are different alternative opening scenes where there are more engineers there with like Lord of the Rings-esque cloaks on them.
I'd believe that.
Again, like no dialogue, but yeah, I think there's enough there that kind of keeps it simple for me.
I'm assuming that the goo was what was in those chambers that they ate.
Yeah, you would imagine so. Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, okay, I didn't even mean to eat it. That's understandable.
So, directing score for you, Leigh. What are you going for Prometheus?
I do like Ridley Scott. I don't know if this is like his best work, so probably give him a 7.
7.
Like, it wasn't terrible, but I can't say out of all the Ridley Scott films, Prometheus will be the first one I go to. There's probably at least 6 more in front.
Yeah, I would agree.
Yourself?
Yeah, I think I'm in the 7 ballpark as well. Again, I think this is kind of the era where like Ridley Scott is kind of just. I said this last week when we were talking about Napoleon briefly. He's just like, yeah, fuck it, that looks good, I'll do it. He's just at that age. But yeah, the most frustrating thing is it just feels all very rushed and it's frustrating. So I might go like a 6.7. Right, screenplay. Then, like, the one thing that has always bothered me about this film is that when we see like the Prometheus for the first time, the spaceship, you see all this information that comes up on screen with text, and the first line reads "Crew 17," and I'm like, 17? The first film only had like 5. The film definitely suffers from what I like to call too many characters syndrome. One scene in particular highlights this big time, and it's a big problem during like a really good scene actually, when like Fifield comes back to the ship but his like body is all contorted like you said, Leigh, looking like a spider, and the way it's directed is pretty good, where it all feels very chaotic in a good way this time. The way he pushes through that guy's helmet is really great, and the way they just run over him while being burnt is great too. That was really gnarly. Some great horror stuff there. But what would make the scene even better is if we knew who Fifield was attacking. Some of these characters we literally see for the first time. So the scene just becomes a cool horror spectacle and nothing more. It's just a great scene visually, but apart from that, like, who are these people?
I know. I thought the same thing. I'm like, all these people are dying. I'm like, I don't think that person matters. I don't think that person matters.
It's like, oh, who is that? I've not seen him before.
Yeah. The only person who you knew was Idris Elba's character, Yannick.
Yeah, Yannick, I think. Yeah,
he's the only one in the room. You're like, oh, I know you.
Yeah.
Like, what? 4 people died? 3 or 4 people died?
Yeah. They're all like mercenary security guys. I mean, do we need that many of those type of characters in this film? It seems a bit daft.
Not on a military mission, which is made very clear at the start.
Yeah, I've never thought of that. Yeah, this is a research mission, mainly with scientists, and yet there seems to be as many scientists as there is military guys, and yet there's like I literally I've seen this film quite a few times, and I couldn't tell you any of their names of the military guys.
Nah, and none of them could take down one guy.
No, I mean he's a Spider-Man kind of in that moment, a Spider-Man alien with a big throbbing face.
Yeah, which made me think of I can't remember his name now, but it was at the post-credit scene at the end of Incredible Hulk, where the guy's head was starting to throb and get bigger. I'm like, you could take that role too.
Yeah, and he's coming back in the new Captain America film, apparently.
Yes, yes, he is. I want to say it's a thinker, but that's me being lazy.
Yeah, he's DC, isn't he?
Yeah.
It's a really bad name, I know that.
Yeah. But yeah, you're right. You don't know any of those characters.
No, they're very disposable. It ends up just being fun, and you're rooting for Fifield in that moment. You're like, yeah, kill that guy. I have no idea who he is. Kill him.
Just don't kill any of the main people. Okay.
Yeah. Yes. But I love how David is written in this film. Like, we see him alone in the ship before the humans wake up, and he's watching like Lawrence of Arabia. He's riding a bike and playing basketball at the same time. Like, you never see Ash or Bishop do that in the original films. Then in that briefing scene where we learn that David has been created by Peter Wayland, he basically says that he doesn't have a soul, and you can subtly see his disappointment. You also notice that Holloway gives him like a lot of shit and doesn't really treat him like a human being at all. There's a moment where he's like, "Boy, you're coming with us on this mission." And he's like, "Certainly, sir," or something, and just goes with it, even though inside he's like, "Fuck you, man."
I could kill you so quickly. Yeah.
Then you have this like slightly irritating scene where David is talking to someone that hasn't woken up yet from a cryo bed, and it's kind of fucking obvious that it's Peter Wayland.
Yeah.
But you discover Peter Wayland is basically wanting more results from the trip. So David has like the perfect candidate for that in Holloway. But I liked their conversation before David very subtly poisons his drink with black goo, where David says, "Why do you think your people made me? We made you because we could. Can you imagine how disappointing it would be for you to hear the same thing from your creator?" Then Holloway's reaction is to laugh, doesn't really know what to say. So it's like, for him, it's not the same thing at all. But for David, he's already learnt his disappointment from his own creator, Wayland. So I love how like the AI in this is more advanced than they realize, kind of echoing like what the engineers have gone through in this film, where they don't realize how powerful this black goo can be in creating new life, like the vagina snake that kills Fifield and Melbourne. So I kind of like, the duality there, that Wayland is kind of like the engineers. The black goo is kind of like David for Wayland kind of thing. It's kind of the same similar sort of thing. I really like David's storyline in this to a point.
To a point. Well, he comes off friendly and then sad and then like a dick, very much all the way through the, like, very much, even in his scene with Shaw, when she comes back from the ship's very creepy, where he's like asking about her father, and she's like, "How do you know?" He's like, "I've watched your dreams."
Yeah, that is really weird. Yeah.
Yeah, like, I'm leaving now with that thought, with that thought.
Yeah. I kind of just like as well in his performance that, yes, he's a robot, and the robotic like acting is just so spot on from Michael Fassbender, but you can definitely get the sense from his performance that like he's really like evolving as well emotionally with his programming kind of thing. Yeah, I really like that. But I find the scene where David Shaw and Wayland meet the engineer for the first time, kind of at the beginning of the first act, really interesting in how you interpret it, and kind of frustrating at the same time. And it's definitely one of the better directed scenes. Like, you have Shaw asking the more important questions to him, like, where did you come from? What's in the cargo? Why do you want to kill us all? Then she gets hit in the stomach from Wayland's command by one of the mercenaries. Then Wayland gets David to ask the engineer why he came, which you presume is, why did you create us? Are you our creator? But what's interesting is when David is talking to the engineer in this ancient language, it's not subtitled, so you don't know exactly what he's saying. Plus, we know that David is very manipulative and says to Shaw that aren't we supposed to want to kill our parents when we grow up, kind of thing, while they suit up before they arrive. So, yes, he's working for Wayland and he's technically his father, but is not satisfied or impressed with Wayland as his creator, so as his dad. So is David asking something about why humans would create a synthetic human like him? Why do I exist? Then the engineer looks at Wayland quizzically, then looks at David, strokes his face, and then just rips his head off and kills everyone apart from Shaw, who wisely runs away. So that whole storyline is kind of just thrown away. And by the end of the film, the balance of how many questions you're left with outweighs the amount of answers we get. Like, the film focuses on spectacle and fan service instead, which is disappointing for me. So that's what I mean in, like, I loved David's storyline up until that moment where it's just like, it's just gone. His head's gone. And it's like, oh.
Yeah, it ends up just like the rest of the robots.
Yeah, definitely. What did you like about, like, David's storyline in this?
I found it very just humbling, very much like a mirror.
Yeah.
Like, they're all trying to find out about creation. They're trying to find out about these engineers. And then David's helping, but he's already disappointed. Like, it's almost like he's already gone on that journey because he's already disappointed on all the answers he got.
Yeah.
And you're right. Like, what did he ask the engineer that pissed him off so bad that he's like, no, I'm going to decapitate you right now. But I do like that in the end he still survived, technically, and it was just him and Shaw.
Yeah.
Like, it's very much him and Shaw's story.
Yeah. And again, you've got the prequel problem with the fact that, like, we don't really have any of these characters in the first film, so they kind of all have to die.
No, it's the same thing with Rogue One.
Yeah.
You go, I like all these characters. Oh, they're all going to die.
Yeah. You're not in the first film.
Nah.
You ain't got a choice. But, I mean, was that scene where they see the engineer alive for the first time, was that frustrating for you? Or was it just a really kind of cool or inspiring scene that you're like, oh my God, this guy is awake now?
You always never know what's going to happen in that type of scene when you meet your maker.
Yeah. I
do kind of wish that there might have been a little bit more interaction, or if he answered a couple of questions at least, and until maybe someone said to him, oh, by the way, the goo's all active, and then he freaks out.
Yeah.
And then does everything, because then that would make a little bit more sense why he's like, nah, let's get out of here. But, like, Wayland dies by a push. I think the other chick, Ford, dies by a push, and somehow Shaw, who's just had a C-section, runs to the ship.
Yeah.
But
totally fine. That's fine.
Yeah. Yeah, which is a horrible scene to watch.
Yeah.
That was probably one of the most, like, cringe-worthy scenes to watch.
Absolutely.
Like, oh. But, I just wish subtitles or some indication of what David asked.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think there definitely should have been, like, a bit more in that scene. I don't know whether they needed subtitles, because I kind of like a little bit of the ambiguity there of, like, oh, what is he actually asking? I think that works well, but I would have liked to have heard the engineer speak as well. Can he actually understand David of what he's saying? Because, like, David, yes, he can operate the controls of the ship, but, like, does he really know the language? Like, he's just basing this off a lot of ancient Earth languages. So would have been nice to literally just get, like, 30 seconds to a minute extra of them interacting, and then he decides to kill them. But no, it's literally, I'll have a stroke of your face, and then I'm going to rip your head off.
Yeah, because somehow I know you're the only robot in this room. Somehow I know that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, that's right. Why does it create the life? Or you speak any words, anything. Why the fact that to turn on all your controls, you need a flute. Like, obviously you know how to talk. But yeah, and then pretty much after that, that's when everything just goes go after that scene.
Yeah.
That's the last slowest moment until the end. But one of those questions we won't get an answer for, which was one of the negative feedbacks that I think one of the critics all were hating on this movie for.
Yeah, definitely. Favorite lines? There's some kind of great ones here. Near the start from David. The trick, William Potter, is not minding that it hurts.
Yeah.
And he says that quite a few times from Lawrence of Arabia. Yeah. That was great.
Where'd you get that from? A movie I like.
Yeah.
Jeez.
The movie I quite liked with Peter O'Toole.
Yeah.
I love Sean Harris in this with his really gruff voice. Look, no offense, but I've been asleep for 2 years. Ain't here to be your friend. I'm here to make money.
Do you understand?
Yeah.
Yeah, I do.
And then later he's like, I like rocks. I love rocks. I'm out of here.
Such a short script very short script for him.
Yeah.
Idris Elba's character, after he got invited to go to Charlize Theron's character's bed, he's like, keep your friends close and give your friends even closer.
Yeah.
A ship like this or something like that. I was like, yeah, makes sense.
I feel like he knows that even in that moment, they're in a kind of situation where like they're not really going to get out of this. Even in that early scene, he's like, yeah, okay, I'm just going to try and get laid with Vickers. She's hot.
Yeah.
Probably unlikely, but I'm going to have a go anyway. I'm probably going to die later. Oh, he does.
I'm probably going to crash a ship. Or what? Which one was it? Was it said to us like, "Are you a robot?" I'm like,
yeah.
That's probably the roughest thing you could say to a woman in this day and age.
Yeah. Not a good choice of line.
Nah, if you want to live.
Yeah.
None of them do.
There is nothing in the desert and no man needs nothing, from David. I thought that was a really great, poignant one that kind of sums up the whole film.
Well, it's a wasteland that they go to, essentially.
Yeah. It's Christmas, Captain. I want to open my presents from Holloway just before they go out.
Yeah.
Tell them I said static themselves.
Yeah. And I didn't feel bad for him at all.
No, absolutely not.
But no, there was good one-liners in this.
Yeah, I like the moment after David has spoken to Wayland in the kind of cryo bed thing. I can't remember, but and then like Vickers catches up with him, and Vickers says, "What did he say?" And then David says, "He said, try harder. Cup of tea, Mom."
Yeah. Yeah.
That was great. I mean, Vickers has a great one when it's revealed that Wayland is her father.
Why?
She says, "A king has its reign and then he dies. It's inevitable. That is the natural order of things." That was quite an epic line for Vickers' character, Charlize Theron. I was like, yeah, she at least gets kind of a cool moment before she has a very dumb one.
Until she's crushed.
But I think my favorite one is when like David is kind of getting a bit more unhinged, like towards the end when they're going to meet the engineer for the first time while they're suiting up, I think. And he says to Shaw, "I didn't think you had it in you. Sorry, poor choice of words."
Yeah, I was like,
yeah, that's a burn.
Yeah, that's a burn if you'd say so. Oh.
Yeah. Screenplay score, Leigh. What are you going for?
I'll give it a 6.
A 6? Straight 6?
Yeah. I'll give it a straight 6.
All right. Yeah, I think that's probably kind of fair.
Like, it's just a lot on the table.
Yeah, I think that's right. Like, there's a lot going on in this film. And I think with your film as well, like S-Men First Class, like there's a lot going on in that as well. But I think more so here, certainly in its ideas. And I think for me, some of them work and then they kind of just don't really follow through. They're just kind of asking more questions from the questions you've heard previously. So that was kind of really frustrating. And as I said, like the Wayland's David stuff just stops and then it just becomes a spectacle fest, which is fine, but I feel like this film needed to go in a different direction. But I do like the fact that it's trying to be its own thing and kind of trying to be subtle like a subtle prequel, if that's a term. I don't know, to the Alien film. So I do kind of like that, but I think it's just execution isn't really there, and just the too many characters thing is a big no for me, especially for an Alien film.
And the fact that the aliens were created from a goo to a woman, to a guy, to a woman, to a bug, squid, to an engineer, to that thing we go in the end.
Yeah.
I feel like the Aliens versus Predator was the easiest answer. How aliens were created.
Yeah, definitely. So I think I'll go like a 6.9. I think there are some good things in there, but there's a lot of frustrating things too.
This is probably not a movie I'll go back and watch.
No.
Very soon. It probably made me more want to go back and watch just Alien.
Yeah, definitely. Well, that's what's great about this film, I guess. It just makes you want to watch the first film. Like, yeah, that's a great one. I need to be reminded of that.
Yeah, let's get back to that.
Yeah. So acting then. I loved the acting from Noomi Rapace during the emergency alien cesarean section in the med pod. That is some intense stuff from her, like where she has to act like she's in incredible pain. Plus, balance that all out with getting painkiller shots and make it look slightly less painful. Then balance that out again with looking shit scared of what just come out of her stomach. And some of that is probably no acting required because she's half naked and the alien creature is a practical effect. So it's like literally right there wriggling away in her face. But I do question her ability to walk properly after her stomach has been like cut open and clamped back together again. I'm like,
the staples, when the staples were coming down.
That was so good. I think Noomi Rapace is a standout here, and she's just incredible in that scene for me.
Her and Michael Fassbender knew the assignment going into this.
Yeah, absolutely.
They hold majority of the weight.
Yeah, I think like Idris Elba is as well. As we said, like the cast here is pretty fucking good, to be honest. Like Idris Elba, he's got this great like casual cowboy pilot thing going on.
We're all gonna die.
He kind of doesn't really care about the shit, but there's some great humanity and emotional stuff towards the end. Like he does care about the situation as well. Like he's not like Sean Harris, so that character kind of highlights Idris Elba's character a little bit more in that sense. So he's great. I think Charlize Theron is just bringing her Furiosa stuff a little bit, but more of it in a stoic kind of way. She's awesome. Like the way she comes out, she's the first one that comes out, and like the press up she's doing, you immediately know she's kind of a badass. I would have preferred maybe if she kind of had more like cool things to do. I know she's a villain character, but like she only has that real kind of like
flamethrower scene.
Yeah, like that's a good moment. But like the one I was thinking was when it's revealed that Wayland is her father. That's the only kind of like cool moment she has, and it's like,
you could do more.
Then she just does the weird running. Like, why are you not running sideways? It just makes her really stupid in the end. So when you've got such an amazing actress playing this character, that's annoying.
Which is compared to a robot.
Such a great burn.
On paper, like, she could have been Ripley's mum. And you'd accept it. You go, okay, makes sense.
She's got that grittiness towards with her, and even like Elizabeth Shaw could have played that character as well. Ripley's mum, maybe. They both kind of have this amazing grit to their characters. I find like Michael Fassbender's performance as David is quite amazing for me. Like in the beginning, he does look quite robotic, but you get like the sense that he's way more advanced than Ash and Bishop, as we kind of already said, but for me, it kind of illustrates that the Wayland Company have put all their kind of efforts and investment into David in making this AI as advanced as possible for this one purpose, to find out who is our creator, but not putting any like safeguards in there.
No.
And not realizing that he can learn emotionally in how he interacts with like the different members of the crew, and the more he learns about like the engineers sort of affects his performance as well.
He becomes obsessive.
So I love like the subtle differences in his acting, like with say Holloway and Shaw. Like he's a bit more sarcastic than before. Also, people have kind of noticed that he doesn't really breathe in every scene that he's in. It's kind of quite remarkable there.
No.
Did you notice that? Or
No, never know. But now you mentioned going back. Yeah, I remember him blinking or breathing.
yeah, he is kind of amazing in this film.
In both.
Yeah, absolutely. So, favorite performance for you, Leigh? Who are you going for?
The C-section was a pretty intense scene, but I probably will have to go with Michael Fassbender. He was when I first watching, he was the one I was like, okay, yeah, he was the most different changing character throughout.
Yeah,
and you still felt for him even when he was just a head.
Definitely.
I was say everyone else. It'd be Elizabeth Shaw would be next. Naomi Rapace, and then Idris, and then Charlize.
Yeah.
That'd probably be it for me.
Yeah, I think definitely for me, my favorite performance is Michael Fassbender as well. Like comparing him to like Ash and Bishop, Ian Holm and Lance Hendrickson.
You could kill them.
Yeah, definitely. Like
you could do a whole lot more than just a knife scene.
Yeah.
That's all you can do.
Yeah, but they're kind of more advanced robots in the sense that they have safeguards. They are specifically designed to help humans, and well, Bishop is. Ash has his own agenda, but he kind of goes haywire, and I love his performance there when he does that. But with like David, he's kind of a mix of Ash and Bishop, where like he seems super advanced for this one mission, and he has some emotional like growth in this film as well with what he learns, and you definitely see like his different opinions on all the different crew members, but it's so subtle because he's got to like evolve emotionally, but remember he's still a robot, and I think he does that so well. There's so many like subtle things he does. It's quite amazing, like so good. And just like the simple like robotic stuff, the way he moves his body, it's just quite remarkable. So I think my acting score will be different from my other ones. So acting score for you, Leigh, what's your score?
I would go a 7, but because I keep thinking about the alien autopsy scene, I'll probably about an 8.
8? Everyone
brought their A game to this film. Like no one's acting I thought was like, oh geez, that's a bit rough. Or this is just a paycheck for you. Even Bernadette Wong's character had some slightly funny moments.
Yeah.
And he's only in it for about 15 minutes, if tops.
Yeah, if that. I was thinking like 10 minutes.
Yeah. Before he's like, a couple of jokes, and the next thing he's like, yeah, we're all going to die together.
Let's crash the ship.
like that's all. That's all your lines.
We're with you, Captain.
Yeah, that's all your lines you got.
I love that line when he's like, with all due respect, Captain, you suck at piloting the ship.
Yeah.
We're staying with you.
Yeah, let's all just crash together.
Yeah, I'm going to go with like an 8.6 for me. I think, Fassbender and Noomi Rapace are pretty standout. So 8.6 for me. Right, let's add up the scores then for Prometheus.
I still can't how old this film is too.
Yeah, over a decade now.
2012. Well, it's funny why we're on IMDb. It's one of the top feature reviews is this is actually not a new Alien franchise.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It's like it's stuck in between its own thing and an Alien film.
Yeah. Yeah, like it's very far apart.
Yeah. So Prometheus gets 43.2. It's really not going to trouble our top 10.
It's not going to crack.
That's it for part 1. Thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed it. Check out part 2 to see who wins. But don't stop there. Get involved and tell me what your favourite films are relating to the episode. Send us a DM or comment on Instagram and TikTok at Film vs. Film Podcast, for X at FVF_podcast. Plus, we are now on YouTube, so hit that like button and comment there. If you do, I'll give you a shout out on the next episode. Remember, please leave us a 5-star review and subscribe. Pod signing off.